Good morning. It's great to see everybody this morning on our Martin Luther King Jr. Sunday service. This morning we also have visitors in our Zoom. It's great to see everybody this morning and it's and we Martin Luther King Jr. Oh my goodness. I'm also listening to myself on Facebook. Look at that. It's great to have our visitors from Mankato, the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Mankato. I'm the Reverend Julianne Lepp, minister of the Unitarian Universalist congregation in Eau Claire, and today we are going to celebrate the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And we're going to start our service this morning with words from Nathan Ryan. It's a renewed hope for the world. Be it real or metaphor, whatever is in your backpack, or your briefcase, or your purse, or whatever you're carrying with you that you brought into this place weighing you down. Leave it behind. If you need it, it'll be there when you're done. But for this hour, just let it go. Come into this place with open hearts. Come into this place with a soul that has remembered how to be tender again. Come into this place with a renewed hope for the world. Come into this place ready to build a world we've always been worthy of and that we have always dreamed about. Come, let us worship together.
Morally, I was led to nonviolence because I felt that it was the best moral way to deal with the problem. We were seeking to establish a just society. And it was my feeling then, and it is my feeling now, that violence is certainly much more socially destructive, and it creates many more social problems than it solves. So I was led to nonviolence for deep moral reasons. I turned to it because I felt that it was the morally excellent way to deal with the problem of racial injustice in our country.
There is no freedom, the wise man said, let justice roll down when the poor cry out for shelter and bread. Let justice roll down like a mighty stream. Oh, children, don't you get weary, walk together, believe in the dream. When the way gets rough, we'll make a new way. Let justice roll down like a mighty stream. Hatred will never drive out hate. Let love roll down, roll down. Remember, our hearts can make us great. Let love roll down like a mighty stream. Oh, children, don't you get weary. We walk together, believe in the dream. When the way gets rough, we'll make a new way. And let your love roll down like a mighty stream. When brutality threatens our daughters and sons, let peace roll down, roll down. May our voices rise up louder than the guns. Let peace roll down like a mighty stream. Oh, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, believe in the dream. When the way gets rough, we'll make a new way. And let peace roll down like a mighty stream. Step by step, one by one, let justice roll down, roll down. They can kill the prophet, but the dream lives on. Let justice roll down like a mighty stream. Oh, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, believe in the dream. When the way gets rough, we'll make a new way. Let justice roll down like a mighty stream.
I turned to it because I felt that it was the morally excellent way to deal with the problem of racial injustice in our country.
It's everybody in this congregation that makes this place my congregational home. I appreciate everybody here. And that's why it's important we make this congregation grow. So I'm asking everyone here to please join us for the 2021 to 2022 pledge drive from February 14th to March 1st. Here we'll continue to pool our resources and do the good, practical work of instilling hope for tomorrow. During this period, you can pledge how much your household can contribute during the 2021-22 fiscal year. And from these pledges, we build our budget and support the work of this congregation. So thank you, everybody.
Good morning. I am Angie Zabrowski, and I'm the treasurer of the board this year. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist congregation. We are a religious community who commit ourselves to diversity. We hope to nourish human differences, those of gender, race, age, ability, sexual orientation, political views, culture, class, and religious belief. Welcome to all who treasure freedom of conscience and the search for truth. We promise to do our best to provide you a spiritual home. We extend a special welcome to our visitors today. We hope you follow our Facebook page. To participate in Zoom and receive announcements about special events and our religious exploration classes, please sign up for our weekly email. There should be a link in the comment section on our Facebook page where you can sign up. Also, families can follow our UUC Religious Exploration Facebook page. There are religious exploration classes for 4K through 9th grade and youth group every Wednesday online for middle school and high school. We're so glad you joined us today.
Good morning, I'm Frank Fucile.
And I'm Megan Fucile. We light our chalice today in honor of 3 UU principles.
We affirm and promote
The inherent worth and dignity of every person,
justice,
equity, and compassion in human relations, and the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all.
Now we're going to be starting our new member ceremony next with Karen Hirsch.
I am Karen Hirsch, co-chair of the membership committee. Today we welcome new members into our congregation, and we'd like to start by having you meet them. And Lori, our first one on the list, Lori, might have had to leave to pick up a child or deliver a child somewhere. Lori, are you here?
I'm here.
Oh, good.
Good morning. I'm Lori Borg. Nice to be here. Nice to be with you all.
Thank you. Kat?
Hey y'all, I'm Kat Hayes. Nice to see y'all.
And Angie?
Good morning. I'm Angie Homan, and it's nice to meet you.
And Kathy?
Hi, I'm Kathy Houston, and I'm really looking forward to getting to know all of you better in the future, and so excited to be here today.
Soma?
Good morning. I'm Soma Pierce-Smith. I'm so happy to be here. I'm here with my daughter. Thank you so much. And our cat.
And Caitlin.
Hi, I'm Kate Spencer. Very nice to meet you all.
Thank you. It's good to have you all with us. It's a good time to remind ourselves of the goals we hold in common and the experiences we share that nourish our spirits. The mission of the Unitarian Universalist congregation is to provide a liberal religious environment that promotes personal and spiritual growth for adults and children in a caring community and fosters actions in the world that reflect our Unitarian Universalist principles. We celebrate your presence in our midst. We look forward to working with you, to worshiping with you, to shaping this community together with you. We invite you to participate as fully as you're able with your convictions and actions, your love and play and gifts, your sorrow and laughter and song, your questions and discoveries. Welcome to our new members. We hope all of you will get a chance to greet them if you're in Zoom coffee groups or meet them in small groups and other group activities. Welcome.
Now is the time in our service where we share our joys and concerns. You may share your joys and concerns in the chat, and I will share them in this circle and community. We will also have a moment of silence so that you can share them. And if you share them on Facebook, I will also read them aloud. For those of you who are in Zoom with us today, we'll get a chance to read them in our own voices if you wish, once we're done streaming the service today. Wanted to share a concern from Alita for her sister-in-law, Kay, who has been struggling with COVID-19, and she asked for prayers and good thoughts for her sister-in-law. Also wanted to lift up Alan Jackson, a UU member who is recovering from COVID-19 and hopes to return to his home at the Classic soon. Ashley says, "A joy, welcome to Kitten into our home. I think there are so many pets that we're going to be enjoying thanks to winter and COVID." Marcia says, "Today is the birthday of my daughter, who would have been 52 today. She died of cancer in 2001. So we lift her up." Ann Shell says, "Go Packers." And Jennifer Lee has a joy. Yesterday, 23andMe confirmed I have a new brother who is a half-brother conceived just before my dad left for Vietnam and his mother was sent off. We spoke yesterday for the first time, and I'm so excited to have him in my family. Yeah, technology is amazing for genealogy. Also want to lift up Sue, who says, "I'm so happy there are so many new members." Linda Littrell, "All good wishes to new members." Deb Labonte, "A joy that my 94-year-old neighbor is recovering from COVID." That's wonderful. Randy Dobchek, who is dialing in from Florida, says, "The wonderful people here in the UU and new members, this church is fabulous." Sue has a concern about the inauguration and staying safe in all of our state capitals. Wanted to also lift up Laurel Kiefer, who has lights a candle that will be meeting the assisted living staff that cares for her mom this week, a probable move to memory care. Want to also welcome our visitors today from Mankato, the fellowship in Mankato. We're so excited to greet you today and have you join our service. We had the joy of joining a service one time with Duluth. It's wonderful to connect across technology and boundaries. Barb Haben remembers my husband Greg's mother, who died a year ago today from dementia. Want to lift up all the joys and concerns that are too tender to escape the folds of your hearts. We are a community of care across the distance, and know that you are not alone, and we are here for you in all the ways that we can be. It's so great to see everybody's faces this morning. And if you will join me with the words to close our joys and concerns, it's, "Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another."
Soon the day will arrive when we will be together, and no longer will we live in fear. And the children will smile without wondering whether on that day thunder clouds will appear. Wait and see what a world there can be if we share, if we care, tomorrow, and a vision remains in our hearts. And the torch must be passed with new hope for tomorrow, and a promise to make a new start. Wait and see what a world there can be if we share, if we care, you and me. Wait and see what a world there can be if we share, if we care, you and me. Wait and see what a world there can be if we share, if we care, you and me. Wait and see what a world there can be if we share, if we care, oh, if we care. Do we care, you and me?
Okay. This reading are words by Martin Luther King Jr. World peace through nonviolent means is neither absurd nor unattainable. All other methods have failed. Thus, we must begin anew. Nonviolence is a good starting point. Those of us who believe in this method can be voices of reason, sanity, and understanding amid the voices of violence, hatred, and emotion. We can very well set a mood of peace out of which a system of peace can be built.
So we enter into this time to think about the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. And it's been many years, and each year we try and lift up the lessons of nonviolence and the lessons of activism. And I think in this time, especially in 2020, especially since the activities of last week at our Capitol and the threats to safety that we are concerned with on our inauguration day, more than ever, the lesson of meeting fear with love is on my heart. I know I wonder what the best course is sometimes. I wonder how to meet the challenges of the day. I wonder what to do in the midst of the pain in our country, pain in our world. And I think back to these words from Martin Luther King Jr. And if you haven't seen this book before, it is called Leading with Love, Inspiration for Spiritual Activists. And I pull it out as often as possible to give me words to get through the day, to really, every day I turn on the news and think, what else is going to happen? What else? What can I fuel my heart with? And Martin Luther King has these words: "We must discover the power of love, the redemptive power of love. And when we discover that, we will be able to make of this old world a new world. Love is the only way." And Martin Luther King Jr. grew up in the South, in segregated South, and in his autobiography that I was reading as late as last night, he talked about his dad and how his dad was a big man, and he was a preacher. His granddad was a preacher. He came from a long line of preachers, and it was, he thought, well, maybe I could be a lawyer or a doctor, but he ended up becoming a preacher too, as we all know. But he talked about when his dad was pulled over one time. And it surprised me because his dad, instead of I guess, kowtowing to the white police officer, he spoke up for himself and said, and spoke boldly. And Martin Luther King Jr. talks about the police officer actually leaving that situation and being almost frightened of this man who was willing to speak up and claim his worth. And it wasn't a violent speaking up. It was a, hey, I remember that word, he got called boy, which was often a way to demean the manhood and the personhood of people, calling people girl or boy instead of, recognizing their worth as people or as women or fully realized humans. And Martin Luther King Jr. talks about the witness of his dad and his unwillingness to bend to the supremacy that he experienced, and not that he encouraged Martin Luther King to be unsafe or to put himself in danger, but he said, "You matter. These laws, these things. This is not natural. This is not separate but equal is not equal, and you matter, and you have worth." And you can see that echo into his legacy that he passed down to his children. And now we see today in Georgia, the minister of Ebenezer Baptist Church is a state senator, and the first African-American senator out of Georgia. And even though we have seen horrible, horrible things, like a Confederate flag being carried through our state, our nation's capital, and other acts of brutality and just unspeakable things, how we respond is the hard part, right? It's calling ourselves into that space of love, and it doesn't mean that we shouldn't speak up. Doesn't mean that we shouldn't be angry, because if you read the words of Martin Luther King Jr., he was pretty fiery. He didn't ask us to sit down and shut up. He didn't ask people to bend or bow. But in the South, to meet brutality, to meet racism, to meet segregation with nonviolence was actually the most powerful thing that he could have done in that movement. And when he read the words of Henry David Thoreau, civil disobedience, he said, yeah, that's the way to go. And then when he went to India and when he studied Gandhi and the power of nonviolence, it takes a lot of courage when people are coming at you to not respond with violence in turn, and to say, I am here, I am standing in this place, I am siding with love. And we do that in so many different ways in our lives. When a child is bullied at school and there's one kid in that classroom who says, you know what, you don't get to talk to my friend that way, or hey, come sit with me at my table, or a teacher recognizes that someone's being isolated and calls them into the conversation. And I went to this anti-bullying seminar, and they said that one ally can make the difference in a child's life. I mean, it can save a life. And we think of the ways in which Martin Luther King Jr., who was one person among many activists who embodied that risk, that speaking up. And even when it's countercultural, right? To respond to hate with love is hard. It's hard. I know. After Wednesday, I was really ticked off. I was really ticked off, and I think a lot of people are angry, and I think we've been angry and separated, and we see on Facebook, if you have watched the documentary The Social Dilemma, our social media pours us into these spaces that amplify the voices that we want to hear, and it's eerie how easy it is to go down the rabbit hole. There was an interview with someone who, after what happened at the Capitol, she disavowed QAnon, which is, if you don't know about QAnon, it's a hate group, and she said it was easy for her to hear these voices and start thinking they were normal, that this hate and this bigotry, and that they amplified her own fears and her own worries. And during COVID, a lot of people are at home looking at their phones and at their screens, and we're not hearing necessarily our coworker who thinks differently from us, or being called back into spaces of love. And so while we might have people on our Facebook feed that we disagree with, and we can say, hey, I don't tolerate hate speech, I don't tolerate, but I instead of blocking someone, unless you just really need to, maybe private messaging them if it's safe. I know I have people in my life that we have very big divides on politics, but we can still talk, and I think that's what's one of the things. We want to hold people accountable, right? We don't want to just say, oh, it's over with, let's move forward, because people not being held to account don't learn, right? But trying to bridge the gap between hatred, and it can feel, I mean, there is an attack on personhood, when people who were targeted because of their identity or their beliefs or who they were, and that's not okay. It's against everything that we should stand for. But if we start embodying that, and we say those darn, and start calling them names, who are we becoming? And who, I know I shout at the TV and say, you dummy, or probably stronger words than that. But I try and just keep it in my living room. I don't put it on Facebook. I don't, I try and pause before I respond. And that's hard. That's hard. Martin Luther King Jr. asked us to think about this. Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? If you have privilege, are you being an ally? If you see pain, can you respond? And doing for others is also doing for ourselves. I think it can be quite toxic to pour yourself out into the world. And I know I have a habit of watching CNN or TV or NPR hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, and I just get so amped up and so plugged in. And I think somehow if I can know that it's happening, I feel like I'm in control. And instead of resting and kind of listening to music or something, I watch the news, and I'm not sure that serves the best good either. So when we think about the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr., and we think about today's society, now more than ever, trying to reach out in love, trying to reach out across the divides, and yet still holding people accountable and saying, hey, that person is a person. You just called that person a name. That person has worth. And looking at our own biases, looking at our own isms in Unitarian Universalist congregations and in congregations and places across the U.S. in the wake of what happened to George Floyd, and with the attention of the pandemic being more focused, I guess, inwardly, people somehow seem to see the things that have been happening for years. And we've been seeing anti-racism discussion groups and internal work, people reading about white privilege and trying to be allies. So life's most persistent question: what are you doing for others? And that can be both big and small. It can be working on ourselves, working on the lens to which we look through. When the Martin Luther King Memorial went up in 2011, President Obama was our first African American president, and he talked about his own two daughters, and he said, Martin Luther King Jr. was a person. He may be a 50-foot statue right now, but he was a person and he had children. And the legacy that I want to give from Martin Luther King Jr. to my children, President Obama said, I want them to know that he was human, that he made mistakes and that he was vulnerable, but that he was courageous and that he spoke up and that he lived a life of integrity. And, that is a simple message. It's a simple message of showing up and to have a moral imagination. That's a big word. But a moral imagination calls us to think about what is happening in the world and to participate in it. And, for a young African American, he went to school in the hardest of circumstances, when, many of his compatriots were not encouraged to get higher education. His family luckily did encourage that. But he went on and he brought that education into action. I think a lot of us can get stuck in our heads and we can, think about things, but even in our own lives, looking at how our relationships are and looking at the things that we do daily. How can we be people of integrity? And in this new year, I encourage you to think about the ways in which we can build bridges, the ways in which we can have discourse that is less fiery, still holding people accountable, but trying to talk to our neighbors, trying to understand where people are coming from. And when people are in fear, and that's been peddled to us hard and heavy for the past 4 years, that fear makes people fiery and responsive, and then it further divides us. And so I'm looking forward to a time when maybe we can respond with just a normal not having to turn on the news every minute. That would be great. and giving ourselves the time to heal. It's been a tough year. It's been a really tough year. So I hope that you will look up Martin Luther King Jr. events in your local area. In Eau Claire, we're going to have a Martin Luther King celebration. I think starting tomorrow at 11, we'll have something on our Facebook page. And I wish you to know that you don't have to be a towering mega activist to make a difference. And Martin Luther King Jr. had doubts. He was as human as the rest of us, but he took risk and he was so eloquent. So many beautiful things that he said that called us to love instead of hate. Thank you, friends. Now is the time in our service where we help others in need and we support the work of this congregation. Our 50-50 Share the Plate recipient is Bolton Refuge House, and you can donate online at uueauclair.com or text to give at 84321. And today we're going to enjoy the music of Jason Shelton. It's called King for a Day, and it's from the musicians from the Association of UU Music Ministries. The offering will now be given and gratefully received.
He had a dream of a world free of hatred and anger. He had a dream of a love beyond race, creed, or color. He had a dream and he gave it to me. What will I do with it? Who will I be?
I've got to stand up, shout and be heard. I've got to let my heart guide my words. I've got to steady my feet and say, what would it be like if you were king for a day?
He had a dream that all violence would one day be ended. It's free, oh free. He had a dream that a world torn apart would be mended. It's free, oh free. He had a dream for
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Friends, it is so great to have celebrated Martin Luther King Jr. Sunday with you. We had new members and we had folks join us from Mankato. And I think we need a little dream today, right? And we can imagine that there is hope on the horizon. It has been such a heavy 2020, and 2021 started off pretty hard. So I am going to embrace the joy and the hope of all the good things that lie before us. And it's not an easy road, but we don't have to do it alone. Martin Luther King Jr. Did it with the power of the people, right? And that's how we get all things done. When we side with love, love wins. And you know, the moral arc of justice may not, and I'm not getting it right, but it doesn't happen the way we want it to, but it keeps on going, and we keep on fighting, and we keep on doing the good work of love and peace. For those of you watching from our Facebook live stream, I'm so glad you joined us today. If you'd like to get information on how to join us in Zoom, there was a link posted. You can fill out our visitor form. And those attending in Zoom today will have a brief joys and concerns, and then we'll go into our coffee breakout rooms. Our closing words today are from Annie Forster. As far as our love flows, as far as our hope grows, right? Grow that hope. As far as our yearning goes, we are no farther from one another. Go in peace and go in love.